Hey, everybody, welcome. So happy to see you today. Yes. Hmm. So let's start with meditation. They're saying still do the Om meditation. So here we go. I think everybody on here knows the Om meditation. We first do the separation of Om into Ah, U, And so it's coming up from the tailbone is Ah, the U is at the heart, and the opens the third eye and the top of the head. So we'll vocalize that 9 times, and then we'll whisper it 9 times, and then we'll go silent for 18 times. And the first 9, you say it silently into the energy centers and watch the energy rise. And the second 9, you can either continue to do that or just watch the energy rise, whichever appeals to you the most. So take a deep breath in, and we'll start vocalizing the Om sound. Holding your attention in your central channel. Gently open your eyes. Gradually getting accustomed to the light as you hold your attention in your central channel. We're delighted to be with you this morning. How may we serve? So while you're getting your bearings, holding your attention still in the central channel, there was an eclipse yesterday, a partial lunar eclipse. Maybe it was a total lunar eclipse. I'm a little bit confused about the astronomy of it, but it was definitely an intense day and not necessarily a fun one in terms of how it felt. So that's what was happening. And the eclipse was over South America, about Chile is the place where it could be seen the most. And generally, eclipses are thought to be powerful, but not necessarily favorable in terms, but their effects always happen after the eclipse, some weeks or months. And so there's a solar eclipse on May 15th coming too. So, and generally this happens at least once a year, that there is a lunar eclipse followed by a solar eclipse, or solar eclipse followed by a lunar eclipse. I'm still learning. I haven't done it enough years to really understand the patterns, but there's another one coming. So it's a very intense time. And as we can all see demonstrated in the world, a lot of negativity is coming to the surface to be resolved into harmony. And one of the things that we know from our own inner work is that it's actually a gift when negativity arises, because then we can see what it is that we need to resolve into harmony. And in the microenvironment, which is our personal lives, that's our experience. And so we can generalize that to the macro environment of our world and see that many, many things are all up at once for us to be aware of, because they need change in this moment. And so we can list, the negative events that are rising to our consciousness to be dealt with. Dictatorship, dependence on oil and gas, who's going to make decisions for the masses of people? Are we going to take responsibility and step up to the plate and make democracy work? Or are we going to stand by and let it disappear? These are all the issues that are up. Are we going to be dependent on gas and oil forever? Or are we going to step up and reclaim the environment Are we going to allow ourselves to be distracted and distorted by opinions that are promoted by the wealthy? Or are we going to step up and do what we know is right in our hearts? These are the things that are up. And it doesn't mean exactly that we need to get involved in the outer world. For some people, that's true. For those of us who are sort of beyond the mundane working age, it's really about how and where we are in our internal work and how much love we can bring to every moment of our lives. And this is true no matter what age we are. This is really the truth. The most profound and powerful thing we can do at any age of our lives is love more. And interestingly, that starts with loving ourselves, because if we don't resolve our own darkness, if we don't address our anger, our fear, our shame, our sense of humiliation and being less than, or our sense of needing to have power that we don't have, any frustration about that. All of these things we need to come to peace with in ourselves so that we can love ourselves and then everyone else in every moment going forward. And yes, this is a difficult prescription. That doesn't make it not worth doing. It's like, climbing a hill when you're not in very good shape. You start with 1 foot and, you may only make it 3 feet in a day. And then the second day you come back and you make it 4 feet. And the first thing you know, everything has evolved to the point where you're walking to the top and floating back down. And this is how it works. It's incremental evolution that we work on every day. And instead of shooting ourselves in the foot when we don't live up to our own expectations, we give ourselves a big hug and a kiss and appreciate our own work and begin again, over and over and over. And this is the way we evolve, very simply. And gradually, our inner self-talk begins to change. We stop polluting our own inner environment with negativity. And we recognize it when it begins to happen and take a shovel and start throwing it out. And really what we do is when we see negativity in ourselves, the first thing we can do is imagine that we're taking a shower of white light. And we say, everything that's not mine, please leave. And we just stand under that shower of white light and let go of everything. And then 10 minutes later, we can come back and say, okay, show me what's mine. And then we have a place to work from. But sometimes it gets so chaotic that all we can do is, step under our own white light shower and let it sort itself out. And then we have some place to start. And eclipses can bring us moments like that where, what? And so we just step under the shower like we would if we were covered with mud. and we let go of everything, then we say, what's mine? And then we get to work. And, it's not like this stops as we evolve. The idea that we're suddenly going to attain some level of purity beyond which work is not required is a complete illusion. That doesn't happen. And we have seen great people, far greater than Rebecca, who have attained amazing things and thought they could coast. And it didn't turn out so well. So this idea that we reach a place where we don't have to work anymore, not true. Not true. Don't buy it. We have to work for always. And it starts with breathing. And if everything's stuck, just sit down and do the Om sound. You see how easy it is to get it going. And that's the way back. First, you step under the shower of white light. Then you say, what's mine? Then you do Ho'oponopono. Having all of that done, then you say the Om sound. And there you are, you're back in your pristine form. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes 10 days. Doesn't matter. We just do it. It truly doesn't matter. Time is irrelevant. The point is that we do it. And that we keep doing it. And then, of course, it gets faster. But then sometimes the density really increases exponentially. And then it's not so fast. But, you understand that every once in a while you have to take a shovel. Sometimes you can just go like this and that's enough. But, often you need a shovel because you just come into a level of density that requires a lot of intensity. Okay, we welcome your questions. We always do, and you can interrupt. We're just so happy to be with you. Yes.
Hi, and thank you so much for what you just said because it addresses absolutely perfectly what has been going on with me for the past while. And I have felt really stuck. This sort of alleviates the pressure to try to get unstuck directly and forcefully. So thank you so much. I really needed that. I kept feeling like I need somebody to just slap me. And this was the most gentle slap ever. So thank you.
You are so welcome, Pam. Thank you so much for participating. Coming is so worthwhile. because the gentle reminders that, you know, we need to do our work. We all get stuck all the time. It just happens. It's part of being human. And, you know, nobody told us why we're here exactly. And so we have all these patterns of matrix of belief that, you know, the people who raised us had no idea what they were doing. And they did the best they could. You know, I've never, well, I've met maybe a couple people who weren't doing the best they could. But that was usually because there were other really strong factors, you know, drama and trauma that really got them turned in the wrong direction. But most people are doing the best they can, you know, like 98%, maybe even higher than that. There are very few people that, but you know, sometimes they want power so much that they kind of step over everybody else. And for the most part, we try to ignore them until we can't. And so that's one of the things that's happening now. But we all do that. And you know, we don't recognize that we're stuck. And it can happen with a kind of complacency as we work and get to a certain level and we think, oh, well, I'm somebody, you know, and then, whoa, what happens? Yes. And then we're just as stuck as everybody else. And we take out our shovel. First, we take a shower and then we get rid of as much as we can. And then we do our work until it becomes a habit and we're no longer surprised when we get stuck. That's a good thing. Because it, you know, when we understand, humility is really important in all of this. Really important. And life sort of does it to us if we let it. If we let it. You know, if we really engage it for a long, long time. But again, it doesn't have anything to do with time. And some people just, you know, in 10 minutes, they're at the top of the mountain. And so you can see that, you know, struggling up to the top of the mountain may be a little bit, you may stay there longer. So it's not always a great gift to get there quickly. Even though it is a great gift, it's hard to sustain. But having one taste of the possibility is enough to keep you going forever. Just one breath with an open heart. So happy to be with you. But when we look at things, you know, in the microcosm, macrocosm way, it helps because we understand that humanity itself is like a being, a sick being. The earth is kind of sick with humanity, is another way we could look at it. You know, we've fouled our nest so deeply. And there's sort of, you know, two things that really keep it going. One is that a lot of humanity has developed an allergy to the truth. And when there's this false equivalency between lies and truth, then we're sort of done. But still and always, the most important thing we can do is change ourselves. And in doing that, we change our environment. And in doing that, we influence others. And we bring our own lives closer and closer to being full of the richness of love, peace, joy, and gratitude as our daily experience. And then the rest of it comes in, but it doesn't destroy us. We have the capacity to not deny it, but to bring ourselves into a kind of harmony. And then amazing things happen. Amazing things can happen. Look at the power of human generosity that is happening in the face of tragedy all around us. And when we make an effort and don't just cave, it's amazing the resources that suddenly show up. This happens in the microcosm and the macrocosm. We welcome your questions. How may we serve? Andrew? Brenda? We do want to make a minor adjustment in the meditation we've been doing. And that is that we're going to have you in future keep your eyes just a slit open during the practice, because the thing is not to leave, not to go somewhere else, even inside ourselves, not to try to create a different internal reality that we escape to, but to still be just a little bit connected to the environment so that we are grounded and centered, but we don't turn into a fantasy. that we are experiencing ourselves as pure light, but also purely connected to our environment. And so we're ready to do both of those things at the same time. Because what we're really training for is that our life on the cushion and our life off the cushion is completely connected, so that we never really lose our connection to our deepest alignment. So we've kind of been alluding to it as you come out of the meditation, but now we're going to start it from the beginning with our eyes just slightly open. So you'll find that place where there's just a little bit of light. And you'll notice that it changes things considerably to allow a bit of sensory impression, but you can still perceive everything that happens inside while you are connected to the outside. There must be something you want to know. There are some wonderful things happening in the astrology right now. Jupiter, the planet of Jupiter is the guru in the sky, the planet of wisdom and spiritual knowledge. And Jupiter is now in its own sign of Pisces, which makes it quite powerful. And so, and it's also conjunct the other great benefic in the sky. Benefic means a planet that's very fortunate when it looks at your, when it looks at you. when Jupiter and Venus look at us, we feel Venus is the planet of love and sensuousness and sexuality and beauty and music and art, all the fine arts, and the planet of relationship, successful relationship. So Venus and Jupiter are right on top of each other, not just conjunct, but very, very close in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. So and Venus is exalted in Jupiter. So both are like very, very powerful and very, very fortunate. And that's happening at this moment at the same time as the eclipse. And so it's kind of interesting that we have these different forces that are so powerful in our environment at the same time. But isn't this the truth of our lives always? You know, something amazing can be happening and something horrific can be happening in the same moment. And life is so intense right now. And it seems more intense than it was, say, when I was a child or when any of us were children. It seems like the ferocity, the just density of experience is so intense. That's the word. And so we have this huge gap between incredible benevolence and intense destructiveness in the sky at the moment. So that's very interesting. And we can all experience some of it depending on where it is in our particular map. See, we all have a slightly different relationship to these events depending on when we were born. But they affect all of us. Sorry, my obsession with astrology is bleeding into a gnosis. But they're the ones who told me to learn it. So we're here together. So I'm going to tell you a conversation I had with them recently where I was asking about what's happening in the world. And I said, well, what happens if the world is destroyed? And they said, there'll be a new one. From a certain perspective, it's humorous. From another perspective, it's like, what? How interesting. You know what that really means? What that really means is that no matter what, doing our work, being the love, peace, joy, and gratitude that we want to become, paying attention to that and really working it may be the only way out. Short term, long term, any way you look at it. This is pretty much what they point to in the scriptures. You know, the ones that haven't been polluted by fear and manipulation. They all start out with great intention. And once we learn the underlying energetic force that every religion comes from, once we learn to connect to that, then we can decipher the secrets of what the teaching really is, which boils down to love, peace, joy, and gratitude. Always. But without denial of all the rest of it. Completely embracing all of it, allowing us, not just allowing, but unless we feel the despair that comes through us, unless we allow that feeling to actually be present and completely accept it and ourselves in the same moment, and understand that it's part of, you know, it's like if we were to eliminate the color red from our color spectrum, we wouldn't see the whole picture. Now we know we can't see the whole picture. The spectrum is much bigger than our sensitivity. But when we allow it all in, then we discover that there are two sides to it. You know, that energy that gives us the power to move through the world is the same energy that sometimes turns to anger. And so we learn the spectrum. It's like everything is on an axis, and we learn where the balance points are so that we don't, you know, it's kind of like a whole series of teeter-totters, you know, and we learn where the balance is. And if we discover ourselves way over here, too heavy, then we move that balance point, that lever back. And equanimity is when we're in the center of it all in peace. We allow it all to be there. And we have come to a centered place of allowing. To the point where life and death, nirvana and samsara. Nirvana is the bliss of consciousness. Samsara is the destruction, the distraction of the outer world. Nirvana and samsara become the same in equanimity, that balance point. And that balance point is multi-dimensional. And it's right in the center of our heart. Yes, it's true. Everything links up. Yes.
Uh, Can you, you probably actually already talked about this, but can you discuss seeking silence, inner silence, or the silence to avoid pain versus seeking silence to include it?
Oh, this is a very interesting question Andrew's asking. He's asking us to talk about seeking silence to avoid pain versus seeking silence to include it. Is that the question? in some ways, they're the same. In the beginning, we seek silence to avoid pain, to get out of our pain. Really. Almost everybody comes to spirituality because they're in so much pain, they can't stand it. They don't understand what's happening to themselves, and they're looking for relief. This is the most common reason anybody begins a spiritual practice, is to get over pain. And most people do that because they want bliss. Not equanimity. Nobody wants equanimity until they understand that bliss isn't the point. That bliss doesn't really go anywhere. Bliss is just bliss. It's an ecstatic state. But it's not the acceptance of everything as it is. And that acceptance of everything as it is bittersweet. The place where samsara and nirvana are the same is maturity. A true kind of maturity that neither seeks to avoid pain or to go toward it. It's really acceptance of everything just as it is. And in that seeing of the whole, there is a freedom in that acceptance. There is a freedom from all of it. And a simplicity that can allow death, that can abide destruction as an inherent part of beingness. And from this perspective, it's a very tantric perspective, because everything is allowed then. But if one actually behaves in that way, well, there's always that place where all the teeter-totters meet. And if you can stay there, everything is allowed. But when you go off center, then you're off center. That's all we can say. So there's this, it's so interesting, this question, Andrew, because it's like, what's the point really? Are we just escaping from our pain in our inner work? And the answer is no. We are completely embracing our pain, not so that we can escape from it, but so that we can find a balance within it. Because the pain and there's, there are different points in practice. There are points where you start looking for the pain because you want to make it all better. And so you seek out the pain, the darkness in yourself to try to make it better, to try to purify everything. And that's a stage of practice too. And then you realize that purity is not the point either. Because then without impurity, when you have purity, you have to have impurity, right? And so it's really the center. It's the center of everything. That's what we're seeking, the balance point. And then releasing ourselves into that. Into the pure light. Because of course, the reality is beyond words. And to say that it's an epicenter is denying the fact that it's also the completely expanded void. No matter how center it is, it's also everything. It includes everything. So you can go out, 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 or you can go in, and you end up in the same place, which is the heart of the heart. Total paradox. So complete acceptance and total avoidance become the same. And not. This is the limitation of language, but in a way we can play with it to try to show you. That which is beyond. We gave you that whole talk about groundedness, and Rebecca's having trouble staying in her body. Very funny day of paradoxes. Well, we have time for another question. Andrew? Yes, Pam.
Yes, I should have asked this earlier because we're running out of time, but our mom is 102. She just celebrated her 102nd birthday.
Wow, congratulations.
I guess, congratulations. She has been ready to go. She's been saying she's ready to go for years. And her body is just hanging in there. But her senses are limited now. Her ability to carry on a conversation is limited. Everything's fading. And a lot of people would encourage her to stay alive for some reason. And other people might be encouraging her to let go. I'm neutral in that. And she's now staying with our son and his wife in a really safe and loving space. But I don't get to see her as much as I used to when she was closer. And so there's not a whole lot I feel like I can do person to person. So I'm wondering mostly about my attitude towards her dying, which is inevitable. And right now it's kind of very limbo for her and for the rest of the family.
Well, the main thing you can do is to speak to her in the Anasa temple. And so it means that you need to sit with yourself and think about what's the highest thing you can say to her. From your heart to her heart. From your heart to her heart. And so the thing to think about is what, as we face death, what state do we want to be in as we transition? So you can wish that she feel complete peace, not held by anything undone or overdone or anything like that, that she just allow herself to pass at the right time, in the right place, completely at peace. And just dissolve into the white light. And that it's completely up to her when that happens. And that you support it. And you hope that everyone in her life does too. Something like that. But you feel into it to get what's really true for you to say to her. And you go to the Anasa temple, get it down to 3 sentences or 4, just something that can be heard and felt. You invite her to the temple. You say these words. And then you yourself let go. You just let go of the outcome. Whatever happens, you are at peace with that. And then you will have done everything you can do. And you may have to go a few times before you feel really at peace with it. And when that happens, then you're done. And it doesn't mean that you're done with her life. You know, she may stay for a couple more years, but you have made peace with yourself about the outcome. And in doing that, you have created a space of allowing. And you have no idea how powerful that is. You're totally welcome. So we're at the meditation point. So we're going to encourage you this time to keep your eyes open, just a slit, so that your eyes are almost closed, but not quite. And then you take your attention inside and you do the Om practice yourself. But stay. And we'll do that for a few minutes and see how that feels. So much love. We've totally enjoyed being with you. Thank you so much. It's been a beautiful time with you this morning. Till next week.